Greetings for everyone. Assalamu alaikum. The last century, two Muslim scholars, Ibn Bāz and Ibn Uthaimīn, commented Ibn Taymīyah's book on the need for the straight way, Iqtida Sirat al-Mustaqim, a key in the medieval religious controversy between Muslims, Jews, and Christians. That is, mosques and universities of the Arab world in front of students from all over the Islamic world. This book and Ibn Taymīyah's thought had theological readings and ideological interpretations in contemporary Islamist ideology that indirectly powered extremist discourses among scholars, students, and new Muslims in social media in Occidental countries and leads to an intellectual kidnapping of Islam. This paper shows how Islamic legal orders and prohibitions influence interreligious relationships from a Islamic medieval today's Islamic world in the East and the West, as well presents how Ibn Taymiyah's thought is quoted, commented, and used outside his texts and methodologies, and is used in an extremist way by Muslims, polemists, terrorists, or jihadists, misinterpreting Ibn Taymiyah's texts, terrorists, or jihadists, misinterpreting Ibn Taymiyah's texts and methodologies. Knowledge of Islamic theology and legislation on other religions which frame the work of Ibn Taymiyah comes from three quite different time periods. The Islamic knowledge that is based in two sources, Quran and the Sunnah, the first Muslims researchers of religions, and the current tradition of Muslims who have lived in the West. Such legal verities from Ibn Taymiyah are translated and published on social media covering legal issues, or are included in texts, magazines, and videos about legal terms like if a Muslim can wear jeans or not, or included in a terrorist propaganda calling to jihad in Arabic and translated into Western language without taking the sources of Islamic knowledge or the comments from Islamist scholars. Ibn Bāz critiques a general epistemological rule between Muslims in order to acquire knowledge from another religious groups, because some Muslim groups says everything that they say is wrong, batil, as the Jews and Christians say is other, since each group rejects what is in the other group. And Ibn Uthaimīn says the Muslim must receive the truth. Al-Haq, from any group, ta'ifa, either from those who call themselves Sufis or from those who attribute to themselves the legal knowledge, or from the scholars of Islamic law, ulama sharia, and not to win nothing from them and say all their actions are incorrect, khata. This kind of methodology is not correct. Muslims should, as Ibn Taymiyah says, recognize the truth and reject the wrong. The truth will be what is found in the book of the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah, undoubted and undebatable sources of truth in Ibn Taymiyah's proposal. Ibn Taymiyah and his commentators present the religious exaggeration from the Jews and the Christians as the origin of religious innovation among Muslims. Because of this reason, Muslims are especially encouraged not to resemble them. For them, the religious exaggeration, al-ghulu, begins with the relation to the deceased prophets and the virtuous persons among Jews and Christians, called by Ibn Taymiyah the sects of misleading, tawa'if al. And Ibn Bāz comments that among Muslims, all this religious exaggeration is due to an excessive affection for them without limits, due to the ignorance, and comes to resemble the exaggeration of Christians, or to fall into something more harmful than what they have fallen. This is a constant comparison in the controversial text of Ibn Taymiyah, who even mentioned that the exaggeration of Christians in their beliefs, al-i'tiqadat, and in their works, al-a'mal, is greater than of the other religion sects. In fact, the prohibition of exaggeration is mentioned in the Quran itself for the people of the book, Jews and Christians. In Ibn Taymiyah's thought, the best example of religious exaggeration and innovation is the Christian monasticism. This idea is reiterated by Ibn Bāz, who creates a theological and legal rule, qaida, on acts of worship, according to which Any act of worship that doesn't come from Islamic law belongs to the innovative Christian monasticism, whether it is an act of external worship in his home or between him and his Lord. A rule that is not directly based on the first rules of the aforementioned Islamic knowledge, that is, the Quran and the Authentic tradition. While it is clear in Islamic theology that every act of worship that has not been legislated by God and His Messenger is a religious innovation and is therefore forbidden as an act of worship. While innovative monasticism is the reason for Muslims to differentiate themselves from Christians, among the Jews the reason will be hardness, tashaddud, and innovation, ibtida'a, in religion that God has not allowed, lam yadhan, such is exemplified in the rules of religion cleansing, at-tahara, in which Jews will have great exaggeration, while Christians will have innovated these standards as much as to abandon them, until they take nothing as dirty, لا ينجسون شيئا. So Ibn Bāz called Christians generally people of the dirt, النجاسة, أهل النجاسات, and calls Jews people of hardness, innovation, rejection, exaggeration, and insistence. These generic titles create separation in the midst of a generalization about other religions groups more fictional than real. The resemblance between Muslims, Jews, and Christians has three types, and each has different legal verdicts. According to Ibn Bāz, the first one is the likeness that leads to apostasy, rida, such as the resemblance to them in disbelief, kufr, in their misleading, dalal, in their belief, i'tiqad, or in a sin, ma'asiyah, such as consuming alcohol or singing songs. The second resemblance refers to sins in general, and the third one is the resemblance by carelessness or ignorance, and mistakenly believing that an action from them is a part of Islamic religion. The resemblance of Muslims to Jews and Christians includes two current social and religious problems about Muslims, inside and outside the Islamic world, problems that fall within the context of modern Islamism and his intellectual kidnapping of Islam. Such problems are the social and religious rejection of a Muslim or a group of Muslims by political or their personal mistakes, and the second problem is takfirism, or declaring a Muslim or a group of Muslims disbeliever, making possible to apply them legal norms and social treatment for non-Muslims. Social rejection and Islamic fundamentalism have their origin in academic and religious centers, now expand quickly in social networks. Both of them are exported outside the boundaries of the Middle East, and slowly leads to takfirism, and this one into jihadism. In fact, most of the mistakes made by the scholars were purpose-led, bidun qasd, and neither Ibn Taymīyah nor his commentator supports current social rejection or takfirism and Islamist methodologies. According to Ibn Taymīyah, the Muslim must turn away from looking like other religious groups in what has not been legislated to him, and must be aware of falling into look like to what has been forbidden to resemble. According to Ibn Bāz, Islamic law, Sharia, has established the order to any Muslim to differentiate mukhalafa from Jews and Christians in all matters, fi kulli shay, should be avoided as a precaution because there can be a transgression, mukhalafa. Therefore, Ibn Bāz points out that the display of Christian crosses in Muslim territories or allowing them to drink alcohol are part of showing the religion's rituals and indulgence to them. Then it's necessary that Muslims who have the capacity forbid them from showing the religion rituals, as in several Muslim countries such as Saudi Arabia, with the social and legal implications for freedom of worship and the possibility for a religious coercion. Islamic knowledge in the Quran, the Sunnah, and medieval Islamic treatises of religions are parallelized in the past, while comments and translation from these two sources allows to misrepresent the first two. In modern Islamism, there is no possibility of dialogue or changes around the prohibitions of looking like other religious groups and the orders to differentiate from them, because the theological, epistemological, and legal foundation in this regard are presented as fixed from medieval times until now. Foundations that increase social separations and divisions that facilitate clashes between different religious groups and between Muslims themselves. These orders and prohibitions arise from a medieval Islamic context and seek to be applied today by modern Islamism from Middle East territories and by extension in the Muslim communities of Europe and the Americas. Outside the methodology proposed by Ibn Taymīyah of differentiation from non-Muslim and our recognition of the Islamic personality, and leads to the separation that forms ghettos and clashes between Muslims and non-Muslims. The use of pejorative titles from Jews and Christians creates a distance for interreligious dialogue, weakens the diffusion of Islam, and increases social split, presenting them as the origin of religious innovation among Muslims, is transposing what happens in these religious groups and is not right or enough to correct such innovations inside the Muslim community, since the actions of others, whether individuals or groups, in their liturgy, acts of worship, dress, and customs in general, are not a cause nor a justification of the Muslim actions. The legal verdicts, fatwa, from contexts like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are verdicts that are translated and applied outside the kingdom in territories where interreligious relations and coexistence between Jews, Christians, Muslims, and non-believers has ascended the Arabian Peninsula, where such coexistence has been minimal for centuries. Modern oral and written comments to the works of Ibn Taymīyah present legal and theological matters with multiple epistemological and sociological problems for the current relationship of Muslims with Jews and Christians that had not been studied yet. Because of the lack of translations, the big amount of opinions and controversies about his work and thought, without proofs from his texts nor the Islamic sources of knowledge, or just by the objectives of citing his thought to condemn Islamic religion or to originate terrorist actions. Social rejection based on a theological or personal mistake united with Islamic extremism often leads to takfirism, and this one to jihadism. Even Ibn Taymīyah, Ibn Bāz, nor Ibn Uthaimīn do not support social rejection, do not support takfirism nor jihadism, but his current readers use their texts, comments, and verdicts to support their own interpretation.